Hello, my sensation students. Welcome to this series of lessons for Year Sixes. This is the Comprehension Detective series of lessons. So it's a little bit of fun because you read the text and then you answer the questions, and at the end you have to work out who the criminal is. So you have to do a little bit of investigating. So it's a little bit of fun. So you should have a link that opens up to a page like this. You're very welcome to do the GATE NAPLAN prep over here if you would like. And then we have the Comprehension Detective here. There are 4 groups here like this. Oh, here you go, that's better. So the Great Escape, the Great Train Robbery, Insurance Claim, and the Rich Man's Lawns. And you just go into any which one you want, and you've got the questions here. And if you like, you can either, so you obviously need to read the text and then come down here and answer the questions. You can just answer the questions straight onto a piece of paper. So you can just say 2A, blah, blah, 2B, blah, blah, and then go to the answers. Or if you want, you can download here and type straight on, or else print it off the old-fashioned way and handwrite it. It's up to you. And then yours is going to say lesson here, but these are the answers here. So you come here and go through the answers, and I'll explain them to you just in case you have made a mistake or not really sure what the answer is. What I'm going to do for each lesson is I'm going to read the text to you first. So the reason why I'm doing that is because it's helpful for you to hear how a successful reader reads. So you're not going to get it perfect every time you read. I have been reading for 30 years and I still make mistakes when I read. What a successful reader can do, though, is they hear that they've made a mistake and they know how to go back and correct it. The problem is if you just keep on bumbling through, not hearing that you've made a mistake, that's what we don't want. You're always going to make mistakes, but you need to be able to know to correct your mistakes. So that's why I read you the text. And then we'll go through the answers. Okay, so you need to go and read the text, answer the questions, and then come back to the lesson and I'll go through it, which is what I'm about to start right now. All right. Oh, excuse me. The Great Escape. Phyllis was prone to telling stories that some people thought were untrue. Whenever someone told her of some things they had done, Phyllis would say she had done them herself, known someone else who had done them, or was related to someone who had done them. Her friend Narelle told her how she had stumbled from the last step climbing down the ladder after cleaning some leaves from her gutters. Phyllis immediately began to relate her adventures, abseiling down sheer cliff faces in the Himalayas. Another close friend, Robin, told Phyllis how she had given some advice to her daughter and son-in-law who were having marriage problems. Phyllis took over the conversation, telling how a letter she had written to the United Nations was the cornerstone of peace negotiations in a major world trouble spot. Worst of all, she always spoke in a loud voice so that people other than those she was directly talking to could hear. When a person makes the sorts of claims that Phyllis did, people often disbelieve them, even when they are telling the truth. This was the case with the last piece of news she told the girls. They didn't believe her, but her story was true in every detail. It had to do with the fire that destroyed the 50-story Empire State Building, which was the new home of Die Vorzon Superstore. You could spend a month looking at all the shops, said Phyllis. People on the ground look like dust mites from the top floor window. I was there on the day of the fire. When I heard that fire alarm, I didn't think twice. I ran straight to the nearest window and jumped out. Narelle and Robin looked at each other. You don't seem to have suffered any injuries, said Narelle rather icily. Of course not, snapped Phyllis. indignant at Narelle's apparent disbelief at her story. Right, so Phyllis's story was true in every detail. Can you, the comprehension detective, fill in the details of her escape and explain what occurred? Okay, question number 1. Humans have built impressive buildings and monuments throughout history. Follow the clues to find the name of this very tall modern-day building. See if you can find in which city it is located. So, one and 5 are in case but not in cafe. So what is in case that is not in cafe? It is the S. So that's the S just here. S there and that S there. 3 is in rag, but not as in rug. So 3 has an A. 6 is in dummy, but is in tummy, but not in dummy. So 6 is the T. 8 is in cow, but not as in cot. So the W there is in cow, but it's not in the T there. So it is here. 2 and 9 are in eat, but not in cat. So E, speaking of cats, this is Aegon who's come to say hello. This is my kitty cat Aegon, and you will probably see him in some of my lessons. So he likes to come and have a visit. What are we up to? 2 and 9 eat, but not in cat. So that's the E, which is there and there. 4 and 10 are in car. So the R is in car, but not in cab. So we've got this one here and this one here. And lastly, foil and not in fail. There we go. Okay, that's how we worked out that one. Write short answers to the questions below. What was Phyllis prone to doing? Telling stories that people thought were untrue. So that was up here. Phyllis was prone to telling stories that some people thought were untrue. List 3 ways that Phyllis could react if someone told her of the things they had done. She had done them herself, knew someone else who had done them, or was related to someone else who had done them. So if we come back up, that's here. Whenever someone told her some things they had done, Phyllis would say she had done them herself, known someone else who had done them, or was related to someone who had done them. C. What did Phyllis talk about when she heard that Narelle had stumbled from the last step of a ladder? She related her abseiling adventure on a cliff face in the Himalayas. So we come back up here. Her friend Narelle told her how she had stumbled from the last step climbing down the ladder after cleaning some leaves from her gutters. Phyllis immediately began to relate her adventures abseiling down a sheer cliff faces in the Himalayas. What did she talk about when Robin mentioned her daughter's marriage problems? So again, that was up here. Another close friend, Robin, told Phyllis how she had given some advice to her daughter and son-in-law who were having marriage troubles. Phyllis took over the conversation, telling how a letter she had written from the United Nations was the cornerstone of peace negotiations in a major world trouble spot. She had written a letter to the UN, which had been the cornerstone of peace negotiations. What often happens to people who make extravagant claims? They don't believe you even if it's true. So that was up here. When a person makes the sorts of claims that Phyllis did, people often disbelieve them even when they are telling the truth. How did Phyllis speak when telling of her adventures? Loudly so everyone can hear. Worst of all, she always spoke in a loud voice so that people other than those she was directly talking to could hear. In which building was this adventure? The Empire State Building. Where had Phyllis been shopping? Dvorzin Superstore. That was up here. It all had to do with the fire that destroyed the 50-story Empire State Building, which was the new home of the Dvorzin Superstore. So that's where it was. And I think the next question is how many stories were in the building? It's 50, it's just here. So J here, what was the highest floor Phyllis could be on? It was a 50-story building, so it would be 50. What's the lowest floor she could have been on? Well, the lowest floor is ground. I mean, I guess technically she could have been in the basement, but that's not usually counted as a floor. Does Phyllis say which floor she was on when the fire occurred? If you go back up, it doesn't. When I heard that fire alarm, I didn't think twice. I ran straight out of the nearest window and jumped out. Also over here, it had to do with the fire that destroyed the 50-story Empire State Building, which was the new home of the Dvorzin Superstore. It says that the Empire State Building had 50 stories. It doesn't say that Dvorzin was on the 50th story. It just sort of implies that. Oops, excuse me, that's supposed to say dust mites, not dust mitts. Let's get that fixed up. What did Phyllis say people looked like from the top floor? People on the ground looked like dust mites from the top floor window. So again, this sort of makes that implication that she was up very high. So it's 50 stories high. When you're up there, they look like dust mites. And then she goes on to tell this story, but it doesn't actually say that she was on the 50th floor when she heard the fire alarm. What injuries had Phyllis suffered as a result of her ordeal? You don't seem to have suffered any injuries. Of course not. So she hadn't received any. And last one of this section, how did she escape from the fire? She jumped out the window. I didn't think twice. I ran straight to the nearest window and jumped out. Okay, so 2 more questions. Explain how Phyllis's story could be true. So she doesn't say which floor she was on when she jumped out. If she was on the ground floor, then she could have easily jumped out the window without getting hurt. So that's what we were talking about here in these last few questions. So it's implied that she's on the 50th floor and people look like dust mites, but it doesn't actually say over here that she was on the 50th floor when she jumped out. So that's where it's been a little bit sneaky. All right, use the dictionary to write a meaning for these words. So something along the lines of to try to reach an agreement or compromise by discussion. And indignant is feeling or showing anger or annoyance to what is perceived as unfair treatment. All right, so there we go. That brings us to the end. Thank you very much for your hard work, and go and have some fun doing one of the other Comprehension Detective lessons now too.